Good morning, everybody. Today is the 25th day in the month of April 2022. My name is Heritage Adisa, market analyst at Hot Forex. And quickly, we check through the markets, find out what the overall sentiment is in the markets, what are the factors driving markets this morning, this week, if they provide opportunities, and then how we can take advantage of it. But please don't forget that this is just a communication material and nothing in this communication contains or should be considered as investment advice or investment recommendation. Users acknowledge that investment in FX and CFD products is characterized by a certain degree of uncertainty, and that any investment of this nature involves a high level of risk for which users are solely responsible and liable. What we have this morning in terms of the overall environment is a risk off start to the day. Overall negative environment generally where you have equities down, you have commodities down, risk assets generally, even high beta currencies down. And then you have, the safe haven assets, safe haven currencies up as well. I had this written down earlier. I said the COVID-19 situation in China continues to worsen, right? Shanghai ordered another set on the round of mass testing for tomorrow, and then Beijing is also, seeing massive spike in cases, and they may experience lockdowns soon. All of this clearly spells fear of global economic slowdown, right? And clearly weakens market sentiment. Equities are down across board, right? Continued from even downside that we saw last week, right? COVID-19 spread is a reason for it. Incoming Federal Reserve hikes as well, also another reason for downside we're seeing in equities. Commodities are also down across, but oil prices are down about 2% already, right, in today's session. The dollar is strong on the day. Market participants have already priced in a 50 basis points hike from the Federal Reserve in their meeting on early May, right? The Fed in their comments have mostly said that clearly, and then even there's been some talk about 75 basis points as well. So there's that. All of that supporting the US dollar that day. The euro is also gently supported. We had President Macron also win the presidential elections in France, right, by quite a margin actually, and that has also seen as a slight positive for the euro, although those upside has really pared down. There's been talks that um the win for Macron has not really been because of clear rejection about for Le Pen, but more or less a show of solidarity, show of support against Russia, right? I mean, having to change leadership in the middle of all these tensions might, you know, cause a little bit of instability. That's what some participants are saying, but clearly that has seen, the euro see a little bit of support. That said, JPY CHF are also supported in the current negative environment. On the other side, you have AUD and NZD weakened or lagging amongst the major FX. Reasons being commodity prices are down, COVID cases in China down. China is a major, trade partner of Australia. So if anything is going on with China, it affects Australia. And New Zealand is a major trading partner of Australia. So clearly, if anything happens to Australia, it affects New Zealand as well. There is that. Generally, weak sentiment also pressures both currencies as well. Even downside in equities also pressures both currencies. All of that has seen them fall down in today's session. For oil prices, down about 2% today. There's been some armed clashes in Libya, very close to the Zawiya oil refinery or Adi Zawiya oil refinery, causing damages as well. So clearly, that has seen, send signal of lower supply as well. Libya is a major exporter of oil, and that has seen oil prices also pull a little bit lower as well into the session because of the tensions. Well, we don't know how that would affect markets generally, but there's that to pay attention to. Um, there's also generally we've had dollar index up, we've had the VIX also up as well into the session, and the dollar leads, JPY follows, and then CHF leads as well, follows in terms of the upside in the majors, while AUD and NZD are mostly the major laggard. For AUD, you want to look at AUD crosses in terms of pairing weakness and strength, but if you look at that, it's been mostly stretched, especially against the safe haven currencies. But pullbacks on AUD CHF, look at that in a bit now on AUD JPY as well, could also be interesting. Looking also at NZD JPY as well, could be interesting option. The day ahead is going to be a light one in terms of the calendar. For the week, mostly is really a light one generally. Yes, US GDP later, advanced GDP later in the week, but mostly BOJ later in the week, but mostly a light calendar. It's earnings season, a lot of earnings will be released this week. So there's that to pay attention to. But overall, risk off, and it's what we're looking out for in today's session. You look at the equity space, for example, on the Japanese Nikkei side, downside, look at the AUS. This is close. We still have closure in Australian markets and New Zealand markets coming from yesterday. So there's that. You look at the US bounces as well. US 500, for example. Massive downside coming from Thursday last week. In today's session, we're seeing a continuation of that downside as well. Right, you look at the US 30 as well, downside as well. Generally downside, and that always points to a more negative environment. Oil prices have been down in today's session as well. They're pushing lower down, now over 3% downside already since this session. And it really, in line with the continuous negative environment, it could continue downwards. You look at the UK oil as well, down over 3%, right? Now below even 105, while the US oil is below $100 per barrel. Now, of all of this, I like to pair strength versus weakness, and we've identified AUD and NZD as the weaker ones, we've identified USD JPY CHF as the strong ones. Just looking at quickly, what are the opportunities? AUD pairs have been stretched. Look at the downside we've had coming from Thursday last week, from the highs, going back to, these high levels were last seen way back in 2015, thereabout. So clearly, at those kinds of levels, you expect pullbacks, and then the sentiment has also helped to see further downside as well. Now, would like to see further downside here, but where we're trading at currently around this 92.00 has been key support level and resistance level, going back to resistance here, going back to late March, as well as late around 24th of March and 31st of March as well. So I clearly don't want to be seeing selling to support, but if we can get a rotation back towards, preferably looking at, let's just look at this closely. Now on this particular one, if I can get rotation back towards 92.5, you can see was the lows going back to, let's just look at this, was the lows going back to clear level of support going back to early April, around the 6th to the 8th of April. Anything back towards that region could be interesting in terms of further downside. You want to look at AUD versus CHF as well, where we're trading at downside has also been very clear since Thursday last week, but now we're approaching key support level going back to, let's look at this. You can see this high, just this level out. All right. I'm trying to see if I can clear this one out. Okay, just see if I can note this one out. Okay, just keep going. All right, you can see the highs, this high level going back to this was around the 7th of March, thereabouts. That's also where we're currently trading at, around this overall region here. So clearly, something like this, I don't want to be seeing buying into support, but if we can get a rotation back towards this 50 moving average here, in this case, around the 0.69 level, you can look at that level as an interesting support level going back to 11th of April, right? If I can get anything back towards that level, then I'll be interested to look for the downside on that particular one. AUD USD has also seen massive downside already over the last couple of sessions now, particularly late last week, right? Right now, I don't want to be saying selling this because clearly we are trading at key level of support. So honestly, that wouldn't be an interesting way to look at that. If you want to look at NZD as well, that's the Kiwi, preferably against something like, JPY as well, just looking at that, and then we'll see how that goes out for us. This is also an interesting one. One thing I want to also look out for to show us here is we had a very clean retest early today's session. You look at this support trend line, or this level here, this diagonal line here, coming from the 31st of March, tested again around early April, around the 7th, 8th, or 9th of April, thereabouts. Also tested here, and early in today's session, right, we broke through it on Friday, right, and let's we tested that level as well, very close to the moving average 50 here, and we've continued downwards. So that's also an interesting one that we missed out on, but then clearly this was very early in the session. Clearly we're not weak then. If you can get another rotation back there, maybe that would provide another opportunity. Anything back towards that level will be interesting, or even better still, this 85.00 level. You can look at support here on Friday, as well as even around 18th thereabouts of April. So looking at pairing strength versus weakness, another way to go about trading this session. Although on the calendar it's a light one, apart from Bank of Canada's Governor Macklin speech later today, we don't expect so much on the calendar. This week is earnings week. We could have earnings report, and we will have earnings release for major companies. So clearly that could also tell in terms of sentiment. If companies report more slowdown generally in their sales, clearly that would affect sentiment negatively, and that would be bad for equities generally. But clearly pay attention to sentiment. If there is a shift and improvement, it will affect the current mood that we have so far, current bias that we have so far. But it's not a bad idea to look to pair the safe haven currencies, looking to buy them against the extremely commodity currencies than hybrid currencies generally. Thank you very much. We'll leave it at that point. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. I would always do our best to help. Thank you. Do enjoy the rest of the training session. Bye for now.